Hello there, and welcome. Am I even ready? I think I'm getting ready. Like, preparations are underway. Here's my Kindle. Yes, welcome. As I sit here in the tropical paradise of Puerto Rico, and await possibly the strongest hurricane in like a decade, figured we may as well get a chapter or two done in Harry Potter because might not have utilities after that. Who knows? It's up in the air right now. Let's just say that. Pun, sure, intended. Why not? Anyway, to the task at hand. We are moving on to Chapter 3 in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Son of a bitch. I'm just gonna keep rolling here. I'm turning my ringer off. Justin, I got you. I will hit you back. I've heard from everybody that I know today. Well, maybe not. I've heard from a lot of random people today. So I'm just injecting a little tiny bit of the personal world here because I'm not. Well, you guys know who the hell I am. That's kind of my point. Right then. Chapter 3 in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is titled The Letters from No One, which is... this is one of the... This chapter has a lot of physical humor and also a pretty epic mental breakdown on the part of Vernon Dursley. It's Shining-esque, I would say. It's pretty great. So, but what we do now is like we discussed. All right, in chapter 1 prologue, basically we get the setup 10 years prior. Chapter 2, all right, this is what's been going on. This is how life's worked out for the last 10 years for Harry. And now chapter 3, we begin to move decidedly in the direction of magic and magical discovery for Harry. So the things that have been weird about his life up to this point gonna start to come into focus just a bit. But not without a considerable amount of hilarity in the interim. So, taking up from last chapter, and that's kind of often how these chapters read, is, I mean, sometimes they change time and scene, sometimes they pick up almost right where they left off. That's kind of one of the things I actually like about the way that she writes, is she sort of, whatever seems to suit the story best is what she does. I mean, yeah, there's still like an amazing amount of consistency, but she sort of, and that's another thing, and I have to... It's amazing because as many times as I've read and listened to these, like I can't really remember, but reviewing this chapter before I started this recording, I noticed that that this chapter kind of, well, when it gets to certain points anyway, it reads like scenes in the movie, even though I don't believe that that's how they cut it when they actually made the movie, but like the situation that happens with Vernon, it's like it's like a little montage almost, but like the kind that they put in like almost like a thriller movie where, like, you know, you see like one kind of weird creepy scene, but of course the way she does it, it's like more as much funny as it is kind of weird and creepy, and then, you know, like fade to black and then fade back up and then like progressing in this bizarre shit that's going on and then fade to black again and then come back up. And even now shit's really gotten weird. That's kind of how this chapter works a little bit. I'm saying that ahead of time because I've been thinking about it. But anyway, right. So we pick up where the last chapter left off. And Harry, after the incident with the boa constrictor at the zoo and the vanishing glass, which, by the way, in the movie is replaced. The glass, and I thought this was actually kind of a good gag for the movie. Like, first of all, it's just Dudley. There's no Pierce, no friend there. But after the glass vanishes, it reappears and Dudley's trapped inside and the snake's outside. So just for extra comedy, I actually thought that was a pretty good movie addition. But anyway, after that incident, as we mentioned before, Harry, not only did he live in the cupboard under the stairs, but he also, when he's punished, he's pretty much just confined there like it's a cell, and they don't give him meals most of the time. And I guess they must eventually end up giving him some meals, because either that or they just know that he's sneaking out at night and getting food, because, obviously he's not dying. So, he's scrawny, but that's another thing. Anyway, by the time so it mentions that by the time he gets done with his imprisonment, as it were, his punishment, and it's his longest ever. It's mentioned the summer holidays were starting, and by that time Dudley had already broken most of the shit that he got for his birthday in the previous chapter. And he'd also knocked down Miss Fig with his racing bike while she was crossing the street on crutches. Good old Dudley. Just a fine, upstanding kid, that guy. Right. And so, to avoid having to deal with Dudley and his gang, Harry wanders around and starts thinking about the end of the holidays, because at this age that he is now, and that he and Dudley both are, they're about to go to secondary school. And that means that they're not going to be going to school together anymore, because at this point in schooling, the Dursleys are choosing to send Dudley to a nicer school because he's their son, and they are grossly unhealthily devoted to his whims and his happiness. And plus, this is also the school that Vernon went to, so it's like a family pride type shit. And the description, so this is one thing, where being a middle-class American from the South, and okay, tangent inside of tangent. I hate using the word American sometimes, just because I recognize the fact that people in South America aren't from the United States. There's one issue with this that I think people ignore, and it's that we don't have a good word. We need a word. Like, what are we? Staters? USians? None of these things sound right. Come up with another word, and we can stop being Americans and trying to claim the whole fucking hemisphere practically. That's ridiculous. Anyway, now trying to backtrack from that tangent to the previous tangent. Hashtag tangents. Oh yeah. Right. The school. That was that was where I was going with this. Being from where I'm from, and from the class that I'm from, or whatever you want to call it, income bracket, I don't really have any familiarity with this kind of schooling. So I have no idea if Smeltings is actually, and fortunately, quite fortunately, we have quite a few people from all over the British Isles to weigh in on this, and to not really set me straight, because I'm not making any assertions. I just don't know. But I want to know if there's anything like Smeltings, like where you have a fucking stick. First of all, what on earth is that about? An instrument of violence, and it's not a sword. It's just like a stick that you beat your friends over the head with or something. I don't know. It's and then the uniform with the top hat and everything. The movies did a good job, in my opinion, of making the Dursleys as ridiculous as they are, most of the time anyway. So yeah, right. and all of Dudley's friends are going to go to that school too. While Harry, on the other hand, is going to Stonewall High, which sounds a lot more like an American high school or secondary school, as they would call it. There's some toilet humor. Harry, I gotta say, man, and I think this is why I fell in love with Harry early on. He always has some pretty great comebacks. Like, and I being okay. Personal moment. This personal moment is brought to you by the number 10 and the letter L. There was a point. Oh, right, personal moment. Today's episode is really interesting, even to me, and I'm doing it. Being somebody who was kind of picked on as a kid, I know what it's like to sort of need sharp comebacks, to sort of, because you're in a fucking adolescent world and people are immature and stupid, and so you have to kind of like be the clever, immature, stupid to like have a chance. So I think I appreciate that about Harry, that he always has good comebacks for Dudley. I mean, of course, granted, let's face it, Dudley's kind of stupid too, but he's just he's raised to be mean and cruel and just generally disrespectful of anybody that's not him. And we late in the story we see a glimmer of hope for Dudley, but only then, really. And it's after a pretty major event. So, anyway, boy, this is, yeah, okay, it's cool. I hope you guys are having fun, because I'm having a good time. Here we go. Yep, I'm not gonna read that, but yeah, Dudley and Harry, good comebacks on the toilet humor. And then we get a chance to see the dichotomy of the uniform situation, because Aunt Petunia takes Dudley to London to buy his smeltings uniform, while Harry stays at Mrs. Figg, and then later we get the fucking fashion show where Dudley gets to prance around in his in his fucking uniform, and it's like ridiculous. And then again, the movies did a good job, I think, with that. It's stupid, but funny, and like that's yeah. Ickle Duddykins. That's what they call them. They're Ickle Duddykins. It's pretty sickening, and Harry does his best not to laugh. And so then the next day we get the juxtaposition of Harry's upcoming uniform situation, or at least proposed. If I can hear that in my headphones, y'all can hear that. That's just somebody driving. That's how loud they are, and they're not that close to my house. Let me just say that. But there is a valley, and there's a road that runs along one side, so things kind of echo. Anyway, right, we are moving along. So yeah, Harry comes into the kitchen the next morning. There's a horrible smell, and then he sees that there's a like a bin, or what is the fucking word? Tub. There we go. A large metal tub in the sink, and turns out it's going to be his quote unquote new uniform for his Stonewall High uniform, and it's basically old stuff of Dudley's that's being dyed gray. Which that's another thing, by the way. Up until a certain point in Harry's life, pretty much his whole life up until the point we're at right now, he's been wearing hand-me-down. So he's always wearing like oversized, ill-fitting clothing with like broken glasses. Like it's definitely the setup for, because when Harry makes his transition into this other world, he suddenly goes from being like the hand-me-down poor kid to like the trust fund baby, and it's kind of a weird like jump. But it's overly emphasized how bad it is at the beginning, and not for nothing, because I mean 10 years is a fucking long time to be treated like shit when it's all your formative years. Like, the psychological damage is probably actually would be worse than it actually is. I mean, granted, there are people who seem to be more resilient than others, and Harry's one of those people, and there's reasons for that too, I suppose, if we look at his parents. But nonetheless, it's a lot. But it is supposed to kind of like make us feel like the things he gets later are somewhat justified. And also, of course, he also deals with other kinds of losses. So, and that's to emphasize that like the fact that he has gold later doesn't really necessarily make up for the fact that he never had his parents, or that like the people he gets close to end up either, in danger or dying at some point. So, yeah, children's book, all about the children's. So yeah, Petunia explains to him that this is his wardrobe, and he's like, wow, I didn't know it had to be so wet. And she's like, don't be stupid, I'm dyeing it gray. So yeah, great stuff. And then after we kind of get the gloom setting in for like where Harry's going next, we get a redirection to where Harry's really going. And the post arrives, and we get the little chain of command. Uncle Vernon asks Dudley to get the mail, and Dudley asks Harry to get the mail, and Harry says, make Dudley get the mail, and Vernon says, poke him with your smelting sticks, Dudley, not sticks. And anyway, so Harry realizes that it's down to him. Like, he pretty much knew it was from the beginning, but they played the little game anyway, which is kind of interesting. But and so Harry goes to get the post, which we would say to go get the mail, and by we I mean Americans. And that can't be the word, by the way. There's got to be a better word than just dropping off the A and putting an apostrophe and putting a U, and there's got to be a better. Okay. And lo and fucking behold, Harry goes through. There's 3 things in the mail, and one of them is a letter for Harry. And Harry does one of the stupid things that Harry's really prone to do, because he's just. He's not stupid. Sometimes he just doesn't think ahead. I mean, he becomes more skeptical as time goes on. I see a meme where it's like Sansa's line, I'm a slow learner, it's true. That's kind of Harry too. He's not stupid, he just takes a minute sometimes. I can feel that. Anyway, instead of just tucking the letter away or opening it in the hallway or anything but what he actually does, he just proceeds to go back in the kitchen with all of the mail, hands his uncle the part that's not his, and starts to open his letter. And of course, as soon as Dudley sees him doing that, he blurts it out, because that's Dudley. And anything that doesn't revolve around Dudley makes Dudley feel left out, because that's how fucking pampered he is. Anyway, and of course, as soon as that happens, Harry hasn't even gotten to line 1. He's just unfolding the parchment, because it's in the envelope is nice heavy yellow parchment, and the paper inside is the same thing, and it was green ink, which is with slanting handwriting, which will be mentioned again later too also. And with a seal that was basically what we will find out to be the Hogwarts symbol, Hogwarts crest. Anyway, yeah, he's just opening it, and it gets snatched out of his hand by Vernon. Vernon reads a couple lines, and it becomes problematic. But anyway, I just realized that I just did all that off memory. Let's look back at this book again. Right, yeah, so Vernon takes a look at the first few lines and freaks out and calls Petunia over. She looks at it. She also basically freaks out. They don't know what to do. They're blindsided. And, of course, Dudley's having a tantrum because suddenly, again, the focus is not on him and therefore problems. And of course, Harry wants to see it because it's his fucking letter. So there's issues all around here. But so everybody's freaking out. And because Vernon is the largest and the loudest and the adultiest, at least physically, he throws them out of the kitchen, literally by the scruffs of their necks, as it's described. I'm not entirely sure. I guess that means collars, because I mean, I don't think I could actually. Well, maybe a child. I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. They're chucked out. They scramble back to the door. Dudley at the keyhole, Harry at the floor, and we get a little glimpse at Vernon and Petunia freaking the fuck out, trying to figure out if somebody's watching them or spying on them, because that's the one thing that I did skip over in my from memory abridging, is that the letter was addressed very specifically, not just the address of the house, but also the cupboard under the stairs. So whoever wrote Harry knew exactly where he lived and where he sleeps. I know where you sleep. Anyway, so yeah, they're freaking out because they're like, how do they know where he sleeps? So they're spying on us. And of course, Vernon, in his infinite wisdom, is like, well, just ignore it. Oh, that's the best thing for it. If they get no response, everything will be cool. Seriously, Vernon? That's all you got, bro? Damn. So, yep. Vernon yells, I'm not having one in the house, Petunia, which, again, back to what I was saying in chapter 1, or maybe it was chapter 2. One of those. There's only been 2 episodes. Vernon knows enough, I guess. It's debatable exactly how much he knows, but he doesn't know a lot, but he does know enough to say, he doesn't want one of them in the house. We took him in and we swore we'd stamp out that nonsense. So yeah. And then cutscene, and now later, Uncle Vernon did something out of character for himself, but not out of character for this scene. Actually, he visits Harry in his cupboard, and of course Harry tries to ask about the letter. Vernon deflects and says that it was a mistake, which of course is absolute bullshit, and Harry knows that. But Vernon shouts him down because, again, it's Uncle Vernon. And so, again, with Uncle Vernon's infinite wisdom, he's like, they're writing him, and they think he sleeps in the cupboard, so they offer Harry what is Dudley's second bedroom, and we get another look at how insanely pampered Dudley is, because there's 4 bedrooms upstairs in this house. One for the parents, one for the guest room, one for Dudley, and one for Dudley's toys that don't fit into his first room. And that's the one that Harry's getting moved into, and Dudley freaks the fuck out. Like, tantrum of all tantrums, and still doesn't get his way, which speaks to the fear level for Petunia and Vernon at this point, because they don't really know what else to do. And of course, it's mentioned that it takes Harry 1 trip up the stairs to move everything he owns. Meanwhile, Dudley has 2 rooms worth of stuff. So yeah, again, comparisons. They are abound. And of course, Harry's like, at this point, he's like, man, any other time prior to this letter arriving, I would have given anything to be up out of that fucking cupboard, up here in a nice bed, decent bed, regular room, no spiders, a little bit of room to move around. And now I'd rather be back in the cupboard with my damn letter. But life, it's kind of funny like that. All right, let's see. Yeah, and like I said, Dudley throws the tantrum of all tantrums. He's done and it gives a list of things that he did, which I think are pretty hilarious. He'd screamed, he'd whacked his father with a smelting stick, he'd been sick on purpose, he'd kicked his mother, and he'd thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof, and he still didn't have his room back. That says a lot, because these parents pretty much give in to this kid's whim, and not this time. So yeah. And then, of course, the very next day, Dudley goes to get the post, and he comes back, and there's another letter, and the address has been changed. It now has the smallest bedroom for Privet Drive. And Vernon freaks out again, and him and Harry race down that more physical comedy / just insanity. They're all wrestling on the floor, and of course, again, Vernon being the biggest and the adultiest wins again. Sends Harry almost to his cupboard, then realizes he has a room and sends him to his room, and then just tells Dudley to go. And now we really start to see. Well, we're about to. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me not get ahead of myself. It happens. But Harry's like, okay, they tried 2 days in a row. I got an idea. I'm going to try something because I really want my letter. So the next morning he gets up super, super early, very, very quietly. And in the darkness, he makes his way downstairs to go. And he steps on something at the foot of the steps, and it turns out, as the lights click on, it turns out to be Vernon, because for all his stupidity, he still predicted what a 10-year-old was going to do. And, he basically camped out at the front door so that Harry couldn't be there to get the post, which, of course, I don't really understand how the post was going to get there earlier than it normally does. That doesn't... Whatever. I actually hadn't thought about that until just now, and I've read this a lot. Anyway, maybe this day is the day that it comes early. Is there a day that it comes early, people in England? Is there one day where it's extra early? Or does it just come at the same time, depending on who your postman is, like it is everywhere else? Anyway, so yeah, of course, Harry gets yelled at for half an hour, and then and then, like everybody in England, he goes and makes a cup of tea. So yeah, and that's when. Okay, so now, all right, now I don't have to forestall myself anymore. This is when we start to see the little montage of Vernon going progressively more and more insane because he can't control the circumstances, and he's used to being able to control most of the circumstances, if not all of them, at home anyway. And so yeah, he takes the day off of work. He nails up the letterbox he's again with the step-by-step cleverness. These are air quote cleverness, a laser. Anyway. So yeah, he's like, yeah, that'll. And Petunia's like, I'm not really sure that's gonna do what you think it's gonna do. But he's like, oh, they don't think like us. It's gonna be fine. As he tries to hammer a nail with a piece of fruitcake. Yeah. Anyway, and then we, cut scene, fade back up. On Friday, we have no fewer than 12 letters arriving. They didn't come through the letterbox because that was nailed up, so they've been slotted under the door, underneath it, and some forced through a small window in the downstairs bathroom, which, of course, is called the toilet. Uncle Vernon stayed home again, burned all the letters, and then started nailing up more cracks in the doors, and so nobody could leave. And was humming Tiptoe Through the Tulips, and then cut and jumping at small noises. These things almost have to be mentioned because it's just ridiculous. But it also sets the stage. And cut scene and fade back up where the next day things. It says here that things begin to get out of hand. I'd say that they were already well enough out of hand considering how normal, well, not normal, but how rigid the structure of this house had been up to this point. But it maybe, oh, well, they mean about the letters, and by they, I mean she. 24 letters arrived from different ways, rolled up inside of eggs. And this is another thing that's interesting. This is the 90s, and there's a milkman delivering eggs. Is that real? Is that how things were still in the 90s in England? Like, I kind of feel like that kind of shit went away in the States like 2 or 3 decades before that. Anyway, it's quaint. And they're still trying like very traditional means to deal with this. They're calling the post office, they're calling the dairy. It's just dumb shit. And Dudley even is like, who in the world wants to talk to you like this much, Harry? Like, this is kind of insane. Like, nobody's ever done anything ever in a way to contact you. And cutscene, and we're back. And Sunday, it's a good scene in the movie too. No post on Sundays. No damn letters today. But of course, that's when the letters came whizzing out of the chimney and hit Vernon in the face. Oh no, sorry, the back of the head. I like the face better, but whatever. 30 or 40 of them, like a bunch. And so Vernon throws them out of the room into the hallway. There's a lot of throwing into the hallway in this chapter. Like, this is the 3rd time. And then they come out shortly thereafter because they can't even deal with what's going on in that room. And so now we really get to like the breakdown just continues. Vernon's like, all right, that's it, we're leaving. So everybody has to grab some clothes, and he even like chastises Dudley because Dudley's trying to pack his like computer and his TV and like, you know, and he's like he's like the jerk. Anyway, I just need okay. Anyway, And so, yeah, Dudley's having, like, the worst week ever because, like, you know, after being, like, the most pampered child on fucking planet Earth, like, the world is so not revolving around him right now. And so he's whining in the car, and they're, like, driving, and Vernon's muttering to himself, shake him off. It's a pretty hilarious scene, especially when you consider how much of a prick Vernon is. It's nice to see him lose his marbles for a minute. In fear, nonetheless. So they finally stop at some gloomy hotel that's like just a complete, you know, shitbag type place. And Harry stays awake. Dudley goes to sleep. And the next morning, when they're at breakfast at the hotel, sure enough, somebody from the front desk comes up, and they've got about 100 of these letters, which are now addressed to room 17 at the Railview Hotel in Cokeworth. And of course, Harry makes a feeble grab for the letter, but of course Vernon knocked him out of the way and takes the letters. And Petunia attempts to appeal to his better senses about going back home, but of course Vernon didn't even pretended that he didn't hear her, or maybe he didn't hear her at all, because he's losing his shit. But again, more driving and just all over the place until eventually, wait. In the middle here we get another piece of Dudley's tantrum, but it's also like serves to give us a grounding in what day of the week it is and what's going on, because it's when Dudley realizes that it's Monday and that the great Umberto's on tonight, that he really wants to say somewhere with the television, that Harry realizes that if it was Monday and that Dudley was usually right because of TV, that the next day was going to be Harry's 11th birthday. Important. And of course, it's mentioned here that Harry's birthdays are never really something to exactly look forward to. And this is an interesting thing because this trend actually continues even when Harry's not living at the Dursleys during his birthday time. They always give him something, but it's like such a shit gift that it's like an insult gift. Like, why they actually go out of their way to give him an insult gift rather than just completely ignoring him on his birthday and giving him nothing, which in my mind would be almost more hurtful. Well, maybe not though. I don't know. There's something about acknowledging it and acknowledging it shittily that's kind of like extra mean. But yeah, let's see. What did they say? Last year he got a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. Like, that wasn't a utility. That wasn't a utilitarian gift. That wasn't like, oh, you don't have any socks, you need these, and you don't have anything to hang your clothes with, you need this. No. That was just like, we don't like you, here's a shit gift. Anyway. Yeah. But as Harry says, you still weren't 11 every day, so it was worth noting that his birthday was coming up. So, but this conversation happened after Vernon drove a bunch and parked the car and left them all locked inside. And after this conversation and these thoughts Harry has, Uncle Vernon shows back up, and he's smiling, which can't be good. It's been raining, it's cold, and he's carrying a long, thin package and doesn't answer to anybody when asked what it is. Found the perfect place, he says. And so they get out in the cold and they come to a water's edge and they see out in the water, perched on a rock, a miserable shack. And Vernon cheerily says, storm forecast tonight. So yeah, they have a boat to take out. So they row this boat out there. This old toothless man helps them. I guess it's his boat. And Vernon says he's already got some rations. Not really. So they freeze their ass off sailing with what feels like hours out to this little rock. Also, interesting parallel, I suppose, kind of, to another trip across a body of water to a rock in the middle. Kind of. I mean, just, I never thought about it before now. Mild possible foreshadowing / imagery thing. Right. Literature. Stuff. So yeah, they get out to this shack. It's horrible. It's damp. It's rank. It's moldy. It's musty. It's the opposite of hospitable, basically. And these rations turned out to be some chips and some bananas, which of course are referred to as crisps. Crisps, not chips, because again, Brit version. No fire because the crisp packets just smoked and shriveled up. Vernon makes a funny joke about, and by funny I mean not really that funny, joke about wishing he had some of those letters to burn. He's obviously convinced that they've found the place that letters will not get to. And you know, as Harry says here, he privately agrees. And as a reader, you kind of do too. You're like, well, he may have found the place where, at least for now, they're safe from the letters. But anyway, so everybody goes to sleep except for Harry, of course, yet again, because also everybody else has something to sleep on that's not the floor. Harry's on the floor, and for some reason, Dudley's watch doesn't have a thing to turn off the light, so it's lit up so Harry can see his birthday ticking closer and closer. And we get sort of the countdown. And he's wondering about where the letter writer is now. You know, what's going on out there in the real world now that I'm on a fucking rock in the middle of the ocean. And so, yeah, 5 minutes to the birthday, and Harry hears some noises outside, and he's like, man, I really hope this storm doesn't blow the place in. 4 minutes, blah, 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 blah. He's like, maybe the house is full of letters when we get back. 3 minutes, hearing more noises outside. 2 minutes, what's that? 1 minute, and then he'd be 11, and we get the 30 seconds and the 10 and the ding, 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 3, 2, 1. And yeah, that's when the whole shack shimmies. Shivers. Sorry, wrong song. And Harry's like, "What the hell? Somebody's outside." And that's how the chapter ends. Somebody's trying to come in. Who is it? Yeah. Episode 3, numero 3. Yeah, that's what happened. And thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. And we'll see you back here very soon for the next one. Peace.